forward prior to my administration, and it failed because the residents looked at the cost of putting in the sewer, and they realized that the cost benefit wasn't there for them. That doesn't mean we won't look at it again. There's been a lot of discussion from some of the residents down there saying that we're not pursuing this or that we're not looking at grant opportunities. The reality is that there's not grant opportunities to put in new sewer systems in areas like that. The reality is that the grant opportunities and the stimulus funding that is available is to fix existing infrastructure. This area is low-lying, it requires a lot of sewer pump stations, and the cost is going to be probably relatively high. But we are going to meet with the residents again. We're going to see if there's an interest among the community to do this, and if there is, we'll move the agenda forward, and we will pursue every opportunity to fund it with any means of money that we can find.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Messina?
I agree with Mr. Cunningham that meeting with the residents is something that should be done. I wonder why it takes multiple meetings to make a determination that either something can be done or cannot, because these things really have to be determined and nailed down to move forward so they don't resurface again and again and again. Regardless, grants and stimulus funding, this is a changing picture. It seems like every time I read the newspaper, I see a new and different form of grant source or stimulus funding initiative being made available, and I think we need to keep our finger on that pulse. I know that our town has received some stimulus funding. My sense when assessing what was available out there was that it was a reasonably small amount compared to the hundreds of millions that have come into the capital district. So I think we have to constantly look at that. The other piece is that if you do a capital plan and you're in good shape with your planning documents and projects can be more shovel-ready, you're more likely to get funding for a project.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Mr. Messina, how many times have you and your opponent voted differently, and on what subjects? And how would you govern differently from your opponent?
Is there another question in the deck there, sir?
There are a few.
I'll take that one.
Let's deal with this one.
I don't think Mr. Cunningham and I have voted differently very often. Where we have voted differently is on the issue of governance. And from my point of view, the impact of politics on governance and the need to bring professionals into our government, particularly in the planning board, zoning board, and deputy supervisor position. I have supported some appointments in those areas, but not all of them. And that's been a key bone of contention and a reason for some of my travail over the past 2 years at any rate. I see business people, I see planning professionals in the community. The American Association of Planners have told me there are 19 outstanding national professionals in our community. I wanted to bring in some of those people and frankly just not see the appointment of all Democratic committee people to planning board and zoning board paid jobs. That has been an issue. How would I govern? I would reach out to all members of the community, all members of the town board. Good governance, leadership, what's best for our community would always take first place over politics as usual. That's kind of a key difference, and that's how I would be, in addition to using my 40 years of professional leadership of large organizations to drive our town forward.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham.
My opponent and I have voted together on more than 99% of the votes in our town board meeting. We've only differed on several appointments. One of those appointments was our deputy supervisor, who my opponent apparently thinks is not qualified to be deputy supervisor. Our deputy supervisor was Dan Plummer, and prior to being appointed deputy supervisor, he had served one full term with Terry Egan as deputy supervisor. He served on our town board for 8 years. He's also been a member of our community for 52 years. His brother's a business owner here in this community. Dan Plummer is eminently qualified to be the deputy supervisor of this town. He has served me very well as an advisor. He has done work for this town at no cost to the taxpayer. And so I'm very proud of that vote, and I'm very proud to be able to support Dan in that. As far as the planning board and zoning board, we have a professional planning staff here in town. That's where our professional consultation comes with planning. Our zoning board and our planning boards are designed to be made up of residents, not professionals, who are working with our planning board to make sure that when we're moving development forward, that it's consistent with what the community wants. I have not appointed only Democratic committee people to our planning board. Our most recent appointment, George LaBelle, is not a Democratic committeeman. He was an employee of the town. He served the town well. He was our business development leader here in town during Terry Egan's administration, and he did an excellent job there, and he works very hard to make sure that as we're planning, we're looking towards the future, and we're looking to bring in the right type of business for this community.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham, how do you feel land preservation should be funded by the town?
Land
preservation should be funded.
That's a great question. We've talked a lot about open space protection during Terry Egan's campaign and also during mine 2 years ago. And we started moving forward to develop an open space protection plan. One of the issues surrounding that whole concept is how do you buy land from willing landowners in order to protect open space. One of the ideas that I've promoted and I'm starting to work on is to tie the funding of open space purchases to new economic development here in town. When we do new development, we usually do what's called a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. And what I would like to try and do is develop a way so that when we do a pilot, a portion of that pilot goes into a fund to protect open space. So that when we have a willing landowner that has a piece of property that's of value to the community, and we believe there's an appropriate way to purchase it, then we have funds to do that. We also work with the Open Space Institute. We did that very successfully 3 years ago to purchase the Colonial Acres Golf Course. We worked with Scenic Hudson and successfully bought several acres of land down at the Henry Hudson Park to expand that park. And so we have a lot of different ways to purchase and protect open space here in town.
Thank you. Mr. Messina.
Thank you. Mr. Cunningham spent a bit more time talking about the deputy supervisor, so maybe I will just for a moment. It's important for the deputy supervisor to be connected to town government so that he can step in if necessary, so he knows what's going on in town government and can take action. Our deputy supervisor, from everything I could see over the past 2 years, only showed up at 2 meetings when Mr. Cunningham was on vacation. Number 2, I appreciate any of the service Mr. Plummer may have rendered, but he could have rendered those as a volunteer rather than being a deputy supervisor. On the issue of planning and preservation of land, long before I joined the town board, matter of fact, 35 years ago, I was involved with community groups like Bethlehem Citizens for Responsible Planning to advocate for planning in this community. It's because of initiatives like volunteer groups like that that we have a planning department. The comprehensive plan, which was initiated and completed under supervisors Terry Egan's leadership, is a wonderful model for us to have. Now we have to drive it forward and implement, realizing there's not going to be a lot of new money for acquisition right now, so we need to set the systems in place so that we're ready to purchase,